Coming up on Mountain News at 5:30, lawmakers on Capitol Hill are calling for police reform, and proposed legislation could face an uphill battle after the death of Tyre Nichols. Police descended upon asylum seekers last night in a hotel in New York, where those people are being relocated. Coming up.
Plus, cold air sticking around for a bit, even as we chase the moisture on out of here. That breakdown ahead as Mountain News at 5:30 starts now.
Dedicated to Southern and Eastern Kentucky, this is WYMT Mountain News at 5:30.
Good evening, I'm Olivia Calfee. The death of Tyre Nichols and the arrest of 5 former Memphis police officers on murder charges has put renewed pressure on the Biden administration to pass the stalled George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. The president and vice president are planning to meet with members of the Congressional Black Caucus to push to get the police reform legislation back on track. Nicole D'Antonio reports from Capitol Hill.
At the National Prayer Breakfast Thursday, President Biden referenced Tyre Nichols and his family.
Justice is long overdue.
Wednesday in Memphis, Vice President Kamala Harris made an impassioned plea at Nichols' funeral for restarting negotiations on federal police reform. Congress started work on a bill after the death of George Floyd in police custody, but it's been stalled for a year and a half.
We demand that Congress pass the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. Joe Biden will sign it.
The legislation aimed to, among other things, limit unnecessary use of force, restrict the use of no-knock warrants and chokeholds, and limit qualified immunity, which shields officers from many potential civil lawsuits. That last measure met resistance from Senate Republicans. The president and vice president are meeting this afternoon with the Congressional Black Caucus to figure out how to make progress on the bill. But with Republicans now controlling the House, the legislation faces a steep uphill climb.
We should have simple legislation that we can agree upon.
On the Senate floor earlier this week, Republican Tim Scott blamed Democrats for not making a deal on areas where there was common ground. Reforms that included de-escalation training and a duty to intervene, something Tyre Nichols' family is now calling for.
Had the duty to intervene been law of the land on the federal level, it could have made a difference in Memphis, Tennessee.
With the Floyd bill stuck, President Biden signed an executive order on police reform for federal law enforcement last May, and more executive action may be on the table. But the White House concedes there is no substitute for federal legislation. Nicole D'Antonio, CBS News, Capitol Hill.
The parents of Tyre Nichols will attend President Biden's State of the Union address next week as guest of the Congressional Black Caucus.
Well, for most of us, the snow and sleet of last night has long since moved out, but the bitterly cold winter air, well, it's going to stick around for at least a little while longer. Here's the current view from Pine Mountain up in Letcher County along US 119, foggy up the mountain at this point. Not looking like too many travel troubles, but still you want to be careful, especially as you head up the mountain and get into more of the fog and the mist and the cloud cover up there. It's cloudy out there in general, and you see the snow on the side of the road. Here's a look from downtown Somerset. Roads are dry, but the air is still cold, mid-30s out there at this point. Most of us are in the middle and upper 30s at this hour. Even a couple of low 40s trying to sneak in there in Jacksboro and in Jonesville, but everybody else in the 30s of some variety. The showers to our south, can't rule out some folks maybe south of La Follette seeing some showers, but other than that, everybody's dry, and this particular system should stay to our south tonight. We'll get the cloud cover, but we will and should stay dry. So mid-20s tonight as we start to slowly clear out and as we see a reinforcing shot of cold air. The latest on when we return to some milder air, including temperatures near 60 in a few minutes. Olivia?
Thank you, Evan. The FBI is expected to search the Indianapolis home and Washington office of former Vice President Mike Pence soon. Sources with knowledge of the matter say agents will look for classified documents. The Pence team has expressed that they want to completely cooperate. They say the FBI is unlikely to find any, since Pence's team has already looked around extensively. The search comes after an initial discovery of classified documents at Pence's house. President Biden has announced his top economic aide is leaving the White House. In a statement today, President Biden said National Economic Council Director Brian Deese plans to step down from his role. He praised Deese for steering his economic vision into reality and said Deese managed the transition from, quote, historic economic recovery to steady and stable growth. No details on when Deese may leave have been released. The U.S. House of Representatives voted 218 to 211 today to remove Representative Ilhan Omar from the House Foreign Affairs Committee. Republicans cited reported anti-Israel comments as the reason for her removal. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries said at his weekly presser that he sees the move as a toxic double standard that, quote, is going to complicate the relationship between Democrats and Republicans, end quote. Prior to the vote, Omar spoke on the House floor. She said that she is not surprised Republicans are choosing to target her since she is a minority Muslim woman and an immigrant. She said the debate about whether she should remain on the HFAC had less to do with previous controversial comments and more to do with who gets to be an American.
I didn't come to Congress to be silent. I came to Congress to be their voice. And my leadership and voice will not be diminished if I am not on this committee for one term. My voice will get louder and stronger, and my leadership will be celebrated around the world as it has been. So take your vote or not. I am here to stay, and I am here to be a voice against harms around the world and advocate for a better world. I yield back.
House Speaker Kevin McCarthy defended the vote and said Omar should not serve on a committee that requires successful relationships with global partners after he said she previously tweeted an anti-Semitic comment. The state of the nation right now is apparently gloomy. A week before President Biden gives his State of the Union address, Gallup has released its annual Mood of the Nation poll. The survey is a broad look at how Americans are feeling about a number of issues. In 2023, only about 36% of people surveyed said they were satisfied with policy issues spanning all aspects of government. One of the lowest rated issues was the state of the economy, which only about a quarter of Americans said they were satisfied with. Arkansas Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders is scheduled to deliver the GOP response to the State of the Union address. House Speaker Kevin McCarthy announced the selection today. Huckabee Sanders will address the nation after President Joe Biden on February 7th. McCarthy and Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell praised the governor as part of a rising generation of Republican leaders. She's the first woman to lead her state and the nation's youngest governor. Previously, she served as White House press secretary in the Trump administration. Lawmakers gathered outside the Capitol today to discuss the reintroduction of the Ensuring Women's Right to Reproductive Freedom Act. House members say they are determined to get bipartisan support for the bill. The Ensuring Women's Right to Reproductive Freedom Act would establish a general right for anyone to make certain reproductive decisions without undue government interference. Supporters and advocates say women should be able to access reproductive care in their home state, but if unable to, should not be punished for traveling out of the state to seek that care. This is what one lawmaker had to say about the proposed bill.
We want to make sure that the ability to get access to safe and legal abortion is available for all people, regardless of your background, and the ability to travel is definitely part of that.
NYPD officers descended upon the asylum seekers' encampment last night outside the Watson Hotel in Hell's Kitchen, ordering them to pack up their things from the sidewalk and leave.
NYPD officers descended upon the asylum seekers' encampment last night outside the Watson Hotel in Hell's Kitchen, ordering them to pack up their things from the sidewalk and leave.
They've been given two options: 2 buses are going to Red Hook, Brooklyn. 1 bus is going to 30th Street Men's Shelter.
It's where they had been camping out since Sunday, refusing to relocate to a new congregate shelter set up at the Brooklyn Cruise Terminal, citing a lack of privacy and tight conditions. Hours earlier, city council members touring the facilities at the Brooklyn Cruise Terminal, which has enough cots to sleep 1,000 men, some criticizing the shelter.
The city of New York is trying to discourage people from staying in their care, and that's why they've set up this kind of congregate facility in the way that they have.
I am primarily concerned about the lack of privacy, and I know that our city can do better to ensure that these folks are housed here with dignity.
Advocates say there isn't a reason the city can't open up more hotels for asylum seekers.
Nobody wants to be sleeping with 999 people in the same room. So I think it's a very difficult position to be put in, especially for clients who have undergone a lot of trauma.
Although some asylum seekers who have been staying at the Brooklyn shelter say the conditions aren't terrible.
In regards to the people protesting, it seems bad to me. I don't agree because in reality, there are many people who are in worse situations here. I think they are, well, ungrateful. They told us they were going to take us out to put families with kids. A single man can go anywhere, sleep anywhere, eat whatever. But with kids, it's a different matter.
Yesterday, Governor Hochul marked $1 billion in her budget proposal for shelter and services for asylum seekers. She also said both New York City and the federal government should match the state's investment.
We were with the president yesterday, and he did say that there'd be money coming from the federal government to help the city. He did not give a number, but we believe that they should be picking up a significant share.
And the city says those who did not relocate yesterday will still have the option to come here to the new relief center in Brooklyn. From Red Hook, Brooklyn's Nia Maldonado, CBS News, New York.